Ms. Foley, that meeting is yours.
Thanks, Seth. So welcome to the May 16th conservation meeting. We have a full agenda. So this meeting is being held remotely as an alternate means of public access pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, temporarily amending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You are hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the town of Scituate in accordance with the open meeting law. And we have our diversity, equity, and inclusion statement here. So the Scituate Conservation Commission is committed to providing an environment of respect during meetings. We ask all members to interact in a polite manner, even when there is disagreement. We value the participation of our community and want all participants, including marginalized and minoritized communities, to feel welcomed and respected. We ask our committee members and all who participate to commit to these standards to support and respect our community. All right. So we've got our agenda here. Are there any updates, additions, etc.?
No, do we do roll call?
Oh, no.
Why, we haven't? Oh,
Yeah, I was supposed to call to order, which she just did, and now we're supposed to tell everybody who's here.
Okay. Let's see who's here. Andy. Oh, no, great. We have a cheat sheet for me. Richard.
I am here at home.
Great. Doug.
Nope.
Not here. Penny.
yes, here,
Here with Jake.
yes, somewhere.
Andy. Andy, I think you just put yourself on mute as you said that. We can't hear you. But I can see you and I know you're here, so maybe you'll figure that out. Brendan.
He's here, but he hasn't put his microphone on yet.
Oh my goodness.
These boys,
What's going on here, guys?
get with the program.
Oh, Penny, you were having problems last meeting.
Never.
There's Brendan.
Okay, I'm here. It
Okay.
finally started working.
Cool. And do we have Andy yet? Not
Yeah.
yet.
Mr. Gallagher, if you go to that bottom left-hand corner, you'll see a little mute button, see the little caret, the little arrow. You just might need to select your microphone. Could have changed it. Nope.
Okay, he'll work on that. And Jen Foley, I am here. Great. And Frank is running a couple minutes delayed, so we'll get him in a bit.
So you want a motion on the agenda?
Yeah, Amy, were there any additions or changes that you had?
No.
Okay,
Okay, I make a motion, we accept the agenda as written.
I'll second it.
great. We got a second. Brendan,
Yes.
Andy, can you give me a thumbs up?
Yes, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, there he is.
Great. Yes, I'm also present.
Penny.
Yes,
All right, and Richard seconded. So
Yep.
we're good there. And Jen, yes. All right. Our first one here, we've got two requests to continues. The first one is 22 Oceanside Drive, 151 Turner Road, the seawall reconstruction project.
I make a motion, we continue that to August 1st.
I'll get a second. Anybody?
Second, Andy.
Ooh, Andy raced you to it. All right, Brendan,
Where's Brendan gone?
I can see him.
we'll come back to him. Penny?
Are you waiting for me?
Yeah.
I lost volume. I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay. And Richard.
Yes.
Great. And Jen, yes. 121 Jericho Road. We have a request to continue
Make a
to
motion to continue that to 6/6/22.
6/7.
6/7? It says 6/6, but I'll go with 6/7.
Mine says 6/7.
Oh, I must have had an old one.
I don't know. I'm just,
Where's the calendar?
It's a Monday. It's June 6th.
Oh,
all
okay.
right, back to 6/6. You were right, Richard.
First time today.
Hey, listen.
But you're right, I
August
have the
1st.
wrong thing up here.
So that was a motion from Richard. Do we get a second?
Second,
All right. Andy,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
Jen, S. All right.
Well, and let's hold on now because 6/7 is a Tuesday, so it is 6/6.
Yes, that is 6/6 is correct.
Yep, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Our third one on the list here, 196 Central. This is continued from 4/19. And
So it was already opened.
Yep.
So I'm just gonna unmute Jed Hannon from Atlantic Coast Engineering.
great.
Good evening, commission members. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Jed.
Okay, Jed Hannon, registered engineer with Atlantic Coast Engineering. As you mentioned, this is 196 Central Ave. It's for a proposed residential pier project. This project is along the South River. We can just scroll up to the locust map on the first page. Do you want me to share my screen?
Yeah.
If that's okay.
No,
Sorry,
Jed.
Can't do that.
You
Okay.
can't do that.
All right, so the it's basically a pile supported pier. If you could just go to the profile layout, please, that would be, I believe, on the next page. Yes,
There we go.
great. So Brad Holmes prepared the environmental memo for this project, just kind of as a background. In terms of the environmental check boxes that it falls under, it's land under the ocean, land containing shellfish, coastal beach, barrier beach, salt marsh, and land subject to coastal storm flowage. Brad did the wetlands delineation and the memo prepared September 29th. And the proposed layout involves installation of 12-inch diameter piles, pretty much the entire length. And then we have a proposed gangway. That would be a 35-foot ramp, and then a proposed seasonal float, which is 10 by 24. There's also a 20-foot ramp at the Central Ave side. The pier is designed in accordance with DEP requirements in terms of the length to width ratio and height. There's also, given the magnitude of the ebb and flow of the South River, there's piles proposed for the float just to give it more structural integrity, for lateral supports and such. There's proposed collar rings to keep the piles in place. The deck members are such that there's spacing in between them to meet the requirements of DEP, coastal regulations and CZM in order to, promote shellfish life and such. We have a DEP file number. The harbor master looked at this. He had some comments. We addressed those comments. We sent those updated drawings back to the Conservation Commission. He wanted to know, where the nearest abutter pier was and where this proposed pier is located in terms of navigability. We're not proposing to go out any further into the South River, which would impact navigability. And that's really it. It's basically a residential pier, very similar to what you see that pre-exists along the South River, along Central Ave. At this point, I'll open up to any questions you might have. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Amy, do you have any comments?
Yeah, well, we can welcome Frank to the meeting.
Oh, great.
So that's one.
Great.
But anyways, well, my comments are basically that this is one of the things that's required in order to go through the waterways permitting process for Chapter 91 license. I do agree that the harbor master did comment and Jed addressed his comments. We don't usually see a anchored float. So I think that that's kind of interesting about this project. So it'll be interesting to see what DEP has to say, but we have had no other comment than it needs to go through them besides that. So I don't see why we probably can't issue orders on this and close.
Okay, thank you. Let's go around the table. Andy,
No questions for me right now.
Brendan,
I don't have any questions on this.
Richard,
Am I on? Yeah, a couple of informational questions. That you show the guardrail. Is that ramp behind the guardrail or to the south side of the guardrail?
Good question, Richard. So the
Oh, actually, to the north side, I mean.
so the guardrail runs north-south.
Right.
So the ramp runs, starting in the east and then heading west towards the South River. So there's a minimum of 3-foot clearance between the face of the guardrail and the ramp for, access reasons.
Oh, yeah, well, that's what I'm getting at is the guardrail is not extending beyond the entrance, the ramp. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay, and the other informational question, which you would have answered the harbor master on, is there are aren't there ramps on either side of this, and what is the distance between them?
The nearest one to the north is 280 feet, and that would be number 212 Central Ave.
Mm-hmm.
And the nearest one to the south was several hundred feet away.
Really? Okay.
And so he didn't have any concerns
Okay.
with respect to that.
All right. And then,
But he was concerned for the north.
yep. Yeah, because it does get tight in there in the heart of the summer. The only other question I had, Amy already mentioned, and that's the anchored floats. I've not seen that anywhere in the river, but I don't know enough to object to it. I just have not seen it before. And would they be, and is there a time frame when they expect to be pulling the ramp into the water up? Where are they going to keep it? Do they plan to keep it on the rocks, which is sometimes very dangerous? Those would be questions I would want to know.
Sure. So the owners of the property are Mark and Holly Bossy.
Mhm.
They own the house directly across the street
Mhm.
on Central Ave. So, this would be a seasonal structure in terms of both of the ramps and the float. They would remove it, at the end of the season in the fall and store it on their property in the upland area. So as not to, impact any of the resource areas in the off season.
No, I got it. And I'm just recommending this, that it not be on the rocks on that side of Central Avenue. However, upland is very questionable in that area of Central Ave anyway. So, but I wouldn't keep it on those rocks. And I don't think we should allow it to be on the rocks in the winter because there's just too many times when the whole street is underwater there. Just my
Sure.
thinking.
So they're their house is pile supported.
Yep.
And they have a, somewhat of an enclosure underneath. I believe it's lattice.
Yep.
And they store, kayaks and things like that underneath. So I would think that's probably where they'd store this as well, but
Well,
out of harm's way, if you will.
and I would suggest, not mine to do, but I would suggest that that be a condition. Otherwise, I'm good.
Thank you.
Penny, what about you?
No, Richard got my questions in. Thank you, Richard.
Oh,
Sorry,
no.
Penny.
What a cheater. Frank, what about you?
He's got to unmute himself. There you are.
Great. So, no, I think Richard covered most of them. I just wasn't clear. Does that mean he's gonna try to put his store the float under their house on the other side of the street?
That's what he was saying.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, he said he has a kind of an enclosure, not a solid one under the house where he keeps other things, which is what a lot of houses do.
Okay,
And it is higher there than on the riverside. It's not high by any means, but it is higher.
okay,
That's right.
sounds good.
Okay.
I think you missed Brendan.
No, I got him.
Oh, I'm sorry. My mistake.
Got him nice and early.
What about you, Jennifer?
I think the questions have been covered. I look forward to the chapter 91 response on the on the collar rates. With that, we might be good.
Butters.
Audience.
Oh, right. Oh my goodness. Any abutters? Or people in the audience, if you have if you'd like to chime in, you can raise your hand in the Zoom.
Oh.
Nobody.
And I'll make a motion to close.
I'll second it.
All right. So we have a motion to close. Andy,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes,
Jen, yes. Richard,
Yes.
great.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
So I was gonna say, maybe we should take 97 Central next,
Because of Jed being here?
because it's Jed
Sure.
and he's on the call. We might as well just get it done.
okay.
Sounds good.
Frank, it's your show now.
Oh, I don't know if it's mine or not. I think we're doing pretty well.
You're the end.
So this was continued.
97.
97 was continued from 4/19. So
There it is.
we have Jed again for that.
Same thing.
You want to,
Oh, we need the new.
I'm sorry,
plan.
327 is Merrill,
well, didn't you
Yeah,
just
but
say? you wanted-
97's Jed.
97.
Yeah,
There's another pier and it's Atlantic Coast.
Yep,
Right.
so that's what we're doing right now, right?
yes.
Okay,
Okay, good evening. Jed Annan with Atlantic Coast Engineering. Similar to the previous project, this is a proposed recreational residential pier project located at 97 Central Ave in Scituate. The environmental concerns that are part of the notice of intent on this one is coastal beach, tidal flat, lands containing shellfish, salt marsh, and land subject to coastal storm flowage. Brad Holmes prepared the environmental memo for us. This particular project is a bit longer. It stretches over a significant amount of salt marsh. The proposed layout is sort of less invasive with proposed 8x8 wood posts versus 12-inch diameter. The length of the pier is, the pile supported portion that is 280 feet, along with a 30-foot removable ramp, and then a proposed 10 by 15-foot seasonal float. Both the ramp at the land side and the water side will also be seasonal and removed at the end of the boating season, as well as the seasonal float. I frankly don't know where they plan to store it. I know that typically in the order conditions, it's precluded to store them on the salt marsh, so I would advise the owners of that. But I frankly don't know where they'd store both of the ramps and the seasonal float. The length to width ratio on the pier, as well as the height, complies with DEP requirements and CZM. The deck members are adequately spaced to promote growth for the salt marsh and comply with shellfish regulations in terms of spacing. There is a proposed kayak storage cantilevered section towards the end of the pier. That will be left open. It won't have deck members, so it doesn't further impact sunlight to the salt marsh. It'll basically just be framed out, but with no deck members outside of the handrail, so that kayaks can be stored, but still maintains the ability for some sun to get through for the salt marsh. And that is really it. Very similar design to the previous one.
Yeah.
We had the harbor master look at this one for navigability also. There's really no concerns for navigability with the butters close by. It's a fairly isolated area. He did have some comments, such as placing the name and address on the float and the gangway, given the magnitude of the storms and the ebb and flow of the South River for any events that may take place. He had some other comments that we addressed. We updated those and sent those to the Conservation Commission. And you guys have that updated version. So at this point, I'll open up to any questions you might have. Thank you.
Richard, you're in the hood. You wanna, or Amy, do you wanna, anything else you wanna add to this?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to continue on the discussion on why we have anchored floats proposed for both of these. Like, I mean, is the intention that they're going to take the ramp out for sure, but the float as well in the winter,
Yeah.
Jed?
Yes, float will come out in the winter. Yep.
Okay, because neither of those can be stored on the beach or the marsh.
Understood.
Yeah.
Yes.
And DEP had similar comments, so did the harbor master. So I suppose we can just let the state run with this one.
Okay. Richard?
Yeah, a few questions on this. Jed, this house runs at an angle on the river, so it actually has two facing walls. One that's looking out towards the mouth, and then one straight looking west with the river, which is the way most of them are. It is going on the west wall, correct?
That is correct.
And yeah, it would be essential that they understand that nothing can be left in the flats. That area has historically been terrible when it comes to removing stuff. We've had issues all of this year and in previous years. And so it is being watched, and I would want them to know that, because there have been a number of floats, not they're doing, but almost adjacent to them, where the ramps have been either semi-destroyed and stuff left in the marshes. And we're trying to get that area cleaned up, and they're right in the middle of it. Again, not they're doing, but I think they've got to have to set the example that to date has not been well set. Other than that, I did want to make sure of which location it was. I'm okay.
Okay, thank you.
And Doug's not in tonight, right?
Right.
Penny,
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Jen,
No, I'm good.
Andy,
I'm all set.
Brendan.
I am all set.
Do we have anybody in the audience for this?
Looks
Okay.
clear.
Want to take a motion on this one?
Make a motion to close.
Is Penny, have a second?
Second from Jen.
Thank you, Jen. All in favor, Richard,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
Frank, yes. Okay, great. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you. Have a good
Good
night.
night, you too.
Yep, you too.
Amy, do you want to go back to 327?
Yes, please.
Okay. And we should have somebody from Merrill.
Right, so this one's been opened, but I have, it looks like Deb Keller's on the line, who's gonna present this one.
Great. Okay. Can you refresh our memory?
Yeah.
Did we discuss this at all before?
No, so we just, we opened and immediately continued. So this is
Okay.
going to be the initial presentation.
Okay,
And we actually also have, if he's on the call, we've got your peer review consultant, Sabasha, Bob Gray, but I don't see him yet.
Hmm.
Um, But there's a hand up. Wait a minute, who's the hand?
Deb's got a hand up.
Oh, okay. Oh, I asked her to unmute. Okay, she should be set.
Well, I think Bob's probably reviewed it, so if Deb wants to start, that'd be great.
Hi, Deb.
Amy, do you have any way to just call Bob or check with him to see if he's gonna be on?
No, and it's okay because we just got a revised plan for this on Thursday. So, which we haven't had time to look at yet. So Deb is just gonna give the general opening of the project. Just get initial feedback here.
Okay. Great. Well, let's hear from Deb. Keller.
She's muted.
She keeps getting unmuted and then muted.
There she is. You're on, Deb. No, we're not hearing her.
Deb's unmuted, so she should be on.
Yeah, it seems like she's having audio issues. Do we want to come back to this one?
Let's give her a minute.
Paul Marabito swore that it was us keeping him out of the meeting the last time.
I'm sorry, which individual are you trying to hear from? Deb,
Keller.
correct? Deb.
Yes.
So she is,
Looks like she's left the meeting.
well,
Yeah.
it could be, yes.
She might be relogging on, so,
Deb Vogel, is that correct?
nope, Deb Keller,
Fine, thank you.
and it's Merrill Engineering.
Got it.
Seth, you sound like the voice from above.
Thank you.
He is.
Oh, can
Well-
I just say something? I see Sean McCarthy's on the call.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that he knows that the town project continued. And unless he's on for, and he might be on for the gas main actually, but
So the,
he's on for the Oceanside seawall, that got continued to August. Excuse
well,
me.
there's a water main replacement.
That's in
Central
Humrock
Ave.
later, yeah.
Yeah, the utility project, yeah.
Deb's back. I'm going to ask her to unmute.
Did it work this time?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Good evening.
It kept telling me that you wouldn't let me unmute, even though it said that I was unmuted. Great. Good evening, Deb Keller with Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors. I'm subbing for Josh Green today. So again, as you noted, this continued, but I don't believe ever gave sort of an initial presentation on the projects located at 327 Central Ave. The resources that are on the property are salt marsh. There's a riverfront associated with the South River, as well as I believe on the revised plans that Amy was mentioning, Josh added so therefore we're filing a new notice of intent, and it would consisting of a raise and rebuild. So the existing home would be raised, as well as the existing garage and proposed attached garage, single family home will be constructed. The location is shown on the plan. They have submitted and received approval for a revised septic system in what I would call the front left-hand corner, front along Central Ave. Portion of that system is under the driveway, trying to much of the utilities as well as the proposed structure as close to Central Ave and out of the resources as possible. There is a portion of the proposed home and deck on the marsh edge, as you can see in the sort of southerly side of the property, which is currently now lawn area and sort of scrub brush area, and so we'd like to enhance that. There's plant list on the plants of the proposed plantings to go in that area. That area consists of approximately 1,100 square feet, and the impact of the house and the deck in the 50-foot buffer zone is 503 square feet. So we are doubling the area for mitigation. I do believe there was some discussion with regard to the architecturals. I don't know if we have those, if that want to show those, or whether we just want to start with the site itself.
I think the site, Deb, would be fine.
Great, thanks, Mike. I think that in general, the red line that you see on the plan is the erosion control line. Green are your 50-foot and 100-foot buffers from salt marsh, purple being your 200-foot and 100-foot riverfront areas. We do trying to push the soil stockpile area up close to Central Ave. It's on that bottom right-hand corner as well. Grading on either side, dropping down to the backyard so that you have a higher elevation out front. I believe the house first floor elevation is being raised to 19 in lieu of the floodplain elevation. I believe here is at 15. I think that covers everything at this point.
Okay. Thank you. Amy?
Okay, yeah, so we do have a peer review consultant on this project, Bob Gray from Sebacia. I'm not sure if he was able to get on the call tonight or not yet. I don't see him, but anyways, so we have initial feedback from him with comments, largely agreeing with the resource areas of the salt marshes delineated, and then requesting coastal bank be delineated. So that was something that the applicant was working on. And also, as far as flood zone goes, the site is mapped in an AE 15 in the Limwa area, which means that it's in an area subject to moderate wave action of 1.5 to 3 foot waves, depending on the storm. In particular, there were concerns about the house, about enlarging a house on this property with a solid foundation and possible storm damage and flooding, in particular to the house to the south, which is at a lower elevation and only 20 feet from the proposed new house. Also had CZM take a look at this and weighed in some technical comments, and they were suggesting that the house should be on piles, which that was also communicated to the applicant. We have not seen and I met with the architect and builder, Mr. Ellis, and I believe that they're in the process of revising plans for that, because the original architecturals also showed the basement level with, like whatever, like heater and like stuff down on the basement, which would be below base flood. So that would not be allowed for storage. And then there's also the point of additional encroachment into the 50, which is your no touch. I don't know. I think that just to kick it off for our initial concerns or comments for the board is why they're presenting today, because as I said, they did submit a revised plan on Thursday that has not been reviewed and is not what you're looking at. So the project will be changing slightly. Although I do believe that what I saw still had a solid foundation, even though that's not what we had discussed. So I'm a little bit confused, but that's what I have to say.
So my understanding is Josh did add the coastal bank, as Amy mentioned. I believe Ray wanted to also see the seasonal high water elevation, which you don't see on this plan, but it does on the revised plan. It runs through here at elevation 6.8. So that was, I believe, something that Bob was looking to see on the plan. So we have added that to the revised plan. We're just looking for commission comments, and we'll look to see if we can address them.
All right. Penny, do you want to?
Amy, you said there's more encroachment in the 50, but I only see a little bump out on the house in the middle of the house going into the 50. The rest is between the 100 and the 50. So,
No,
what are you talking about?
see where the hatched building is, that's the existing house.
Yes.
And the proposed is that solid foundation with the deck, which goes closer to the ocean.
I understand that, but out of the 50 is what I'm saying.
Into the 50.
It's just the bump out in the middle is in the 50 on my plan. This bump
So
out.
you must be looking at the revised plan then.
Well,
potentially, I'm not really sure.
Well, I'm looking at the 50-foot line and it goes straight across, and the only thing is the little bump out. But I'm not overly concerned about that. I was just curious if I was not looking at it right. Other than that, yeah, it is a bit bigger house and everything. I don't like the solid foundation. If they're going to have a foundation, I'd at least want, and you can't store anything down there, but I'd at least want blowout panels. So the water can go in if it has to and not go around to the neighbor. So that'd be my only comment. I'm all set, Frank, for now.
Okay. Jen?
Yeah, similar comments to Amy in that I don't love, I'm not in favor of anything being within the 50, or frankly, moving beyond the initial footprint in the buffer zone. So that would be my biggest concern, along with the foundation. And I guess it's early, but what the details on that deck are, because that is, even closer. Did you say what is that backyard intended to be, like a mowed lawn, or is it sand? I know you talked about it, I just can't remember.
It's currently a mowed lawn, so it is maintained.
Stay.
Uh-huh. So we would probably, and how wide is that buffer zone? Does that say 8 feet or something?
So your you see the salt marshes in blue. So then
right.
You have, we're proposing the mitigation buffer is an additional 11 feet coming off.
11 feet. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just couldn't read that.
Yeah.
Read that
So
number.
That would be area that would be enhanced and lawn area that would be reduced. And then you can also see the dimension from the salt marsh to the deck is 34.4 feet. That dimension is to the right there. But where that bump out is for the proposed home, you can see underneath it the two existing pump chamber and septic tank that are already within that area. So I think we were looking at that as already disturbed area. And therefore, to see if there was an opportunity to utilize that for the home.
Yeah, I understand that logic. I still don't love it, but I understand what you're getting at. I am good for now, Frank.
Okay, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, if we're trying to maintain a 50-foot no touch, it seems like you could do most of this and get it out of the 50. That would be ideal. Because I'm even hearing as it is that it sounds like you want to take a tree down within the 50 because of the further encroachment of the house, right? So I think that even the argument doesn't sit well that we're already cutting vegetation out of the buffer because of the house expansion. So those things would be nice, and I think if you could raise it up, that would be great. We've seen what happens when we have these narrow channels between houses with foundations, and what happens with the wave action. So those are my concerns.
Okay. Brendan?
Yeah, I pretty much echo Jen and Andy here. So, I really don't have anything too much more to add. But yeah, the whole 50 and raising it up thing. Nothing additional though. They stole it all.
Okay. Penny, thank you, Brent. Anything else? Sorry, before you're good. Penny looks like she wants to chime in.
I just want to, Deb, did you say the 50-foot buffer was all lawn now?
It is down almost to the salt marsh.
So you are not clearing anything. It's already been cleared.
That is correct.
Is that right?
That is correct.
All right. I just don't want confusion there, that it's completely a disturbed area that you're in. Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I understood you.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, Amy, did we have Bob? Was he able to get on?
Did Richard?
Richard has a comment, sorry.
Yeah, you were gonna skip me?
No, no, no,
Really?
sorry.
Um,
I saved the best for last. Richard.
I know you did. I appreciate that. For anybody who doesn't know this area, this house is about 6 houses removed from the Air Force Base. So it's way up Central Avenue. It is a place where Penny, you and I think you too, Frank, visited about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And apparently it was something that was never carried forth. And I remember we spent a lot of time there. And for those who don't want to leave the mainland, that's fine. But this would be one of those times that I would really recommend a couple of people come out and take a look at this. It's really a very pretty area. The houses are close to each other, and going down into a very wide area of marsh that's been expanding over the years. I'm not saying I have any particular objections to the house, but I think you need to see it before you say, oh, we couldn't do this and we should do that. And it's a very interesting lot of land. And, I do know the area, and I know the house from visiting it, like I said, 10 years ago, and nothing has happened since that time. I just think you have to see this. It sort of reminds me, not that the river is nearly as violent as it was over on Third Cliff, that house we did where the neighbors were close and one was in front or to the side and in front. We were worried that it was going to get hurt by the tides. It sort of reminds me of that issue that we saw on Third Cliff. I remember Andy was out there with us when we looked at that. And I just would recommend we get a few people out to visit this. That's my comment for now.
Okay.
I remember it.
So now, Amy, did you?
So now I think we take a motion. I'm sorry, I think you go to a butters. We don't have our peer review on this, but he's not going to necessarily be commenting on this anyways. He would just be agreeing to the resource areas for the salt marsh and then saying that he needs to take a look at the coastal bank. So, although now we have a hand up, so hold on, maybe that's Bob. GAAR. I don't know who that is, but so I'd say go to a butters, Frank.
Okay. We have a couple, so.
So I'm gonna take GAAR, we're taking just quick, brief comments, please.
Okay.
There he is.
Hi.
Hi, good
This is-
evening.
Hi, this is Lori Talani, and I live across the street at 332 Central.
Yeah.
And I'm just, and I'm not great at this, so I'm looking at I don't have the new plan, I'm looking at the plan that's up. And is it common that you would drive over a septic tank to get to a driveway? It seems to me, if I'm reading this right, that the septic tank is going to be very
That-
close to the property line and then driving over. To me, that seems like that could be not ideal.
They designed a septic system to be under a driveway.
Is that
It's just a different thing. It's called an H20 loading. So
okay?
it's permitted pretty regularly.
And then when would we have options to see the new plans? When will we be able to see the new plans, the architectural plans?
We don't have them yet, so we can make them available as soon as we get them in.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We have someone else. Jane McNamara.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes, this is Jane McNamara, and I'm the abutter at 333 Central Ave, right next door. The house is the house that's there is quite close to my house on that side already. It's very close. And my main concern, not only I wouldn't want the house any closer, and I saw somewhere that it looked like there was some variant that they want to put it closer to my property, and it's already very close now. And but my big concern is with the height of this new structure, It'll be a beautiful home, I'm sure. I've known the Vogels for decades. My big concern is that it will block my solar panels. And I joined the program that the town of Scituate offered.
Mrs.
a number of years
McNamara,
ago.
Mrs. McNamara,
Yes,
unfortunately, the commission, that's not part of our purview. We're dealing with the coastal issues, the
Yes.
resource areas, but we don't, the height of a building is controlled by our zoning bylaws. So it's kind of a predetermined thing. If they want to go higher than what's allowed, then they have to get a variance. But those allowable heights are already set.
We have no say.
So we will deal with issues like, is it the correct foundation?
I see.
Things like that. In anything that's in the buffer zones, mitigation for that sort of work, but really the aesthetics of the house, the height of the house, those sort of things are in the town zoning bylaw. You can certainly take that up with the building department. That's the zoning officer, but that's not a purview for the commission.
Oh, I see. I thought it might be my mistake. I thought it might be because when the town offered this program.
It's not, but it's not the Conservation Commission, sorry.
It wasn't. I thought it would just
No,
because of,
it could be another town agency, but our hearing is
I see.
a coastal one. And in terms of the space on the house or the distance, again, that's a number that's set by our zoning as to how close they can build to the property line. Now, if in some way the construction of that house diverts water to your property or does something else, then we look at those sort of things. It looks to me like, if I'm reading this right, they've created a swale. A little bit of a swale or grade change, Deb, if I'm
Yes, correct.
to keep water from shedding onto your property.
Mhm.
So if you have another question.
No, that was my main one, just because they've worked so well all these years,
Sure.
saving energy and all, I thought they may come under your meeting, but
Oh, I
I
think,
guess not.
yeah, if you can double check with the building department, and when we have a set of architectural plans, we'll get them posted on our site, but that's typically not our purview. We're looking at the type of foundation and then those resource areas. Okay. Anybody else?
No.
So Amy, what are you recommending? Because we just got this revised plan, we're gonna have to
Yeah,
continue
so
this?
yes,
So just so the folks that were on the meeting understand, we're not gonna be closing this tonight because we got a new plan and not all the information's posted, so we have to continue this hearing. So perhaps you could check in if you want to get some more information.
right. And so the hearing date would go to the 22nd of June is the next available hearing date.
22nd, okay.
Two.
You want a motion,
And
Frank?
can we get Bob's input out in an email to the commission and to the applicant?
Yeah, he's got the revised plan and I just don't have comments back yet, so.
All right, but as soon as we get that, we'll get it
Yep.
to our
Yep.
members and to Merrill.
Yep,
All right, so take a motion.
I make a motion to continue 327 Central Ave to June 22nd.
Second.
That's the second from Richard. All in favor? Jen?
Yep.
Andy?
Yes.
Yes.
And Frank, yes. Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good night. 36 Bailey's Causeway.
The Bailey's Causeway.
You're gonna do both at once, Frank, 36 and 36 rear.
I think we can blend them together. I mean, there's a little bit different things, but we might as well. So we're gonna hear both 36 and 36 rear. Do we have somebody from Morse Engineering?
It looks like Greg's on the call, so I'm gonna unmute Greg Morse.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hey, Greg.
So this was filed as a request for an amendment for both 36 and 36 rear Bailey's Causeway. If you're not familiar with the project, these are two projects that were permitted about 2 years ago. They were raise and reconstructs, each one being a single family dwelling. The project is substantially complete at this time. Both homes are up. 36 rear is occupied. The driveways are in, the septic systems are in. But we've requested an amendment essentially to address two items initially. Those two items were in the order of conditions. Condition number 49. Condition number 49 had to do with an earthen berm that exists at the site. This site abuts a salt marsh along Bailey's Causeway. And within that salt marsh, there was an earthen berm, which this applicant, the Waldens, had permitted back in the 80s. It was constructed and a certificate of compliance was issued for that in the 2000s. Condition 49 of your order requests that sections of that berm be removed and allow the lower portions of 36 and 36R Bailey's Causeway to flood. That is
Lost him.
Last you, Greg. Sorry.
it's not something that we proposed as part of the initial project.
Greg,
Can you hear me?
it's
Yeah.
cutting
Can
in
you hear
and
me?
out. You're cutting in and out a little bit.
Okay,
Uh,
so
Just back up a little bit. Something that wasn't proposed for your project.
So the removal of the earthen berm was not proposed as part of our project. We weren't touching it all. We were leaving it in place. If that berm is removed, the lower portions of 36 and 36R certainly will flood to a greater extent than they currently do. Those are the locations where we proposed having the septic tank in the pump chamber for both of these new houses. Our concern is that this would introduce salt water into those septic tank and pump chamber. This condition was added in without full public review of it, without our input into it, and without our agreeing to it. It was added to the order of conditions. We'd like the berm to remain as it stands today and amend condition number 49. The second request that we filed was with respect to a fence that was proposed. As mitigation for this project, there were a number of plantings proposed along the edge of the salt marsh. And between those plantings and the proposed lawn area, we had proposed a split rail fence in the initial project. Our request is to remove the installation of the split rail fence and just replace it with conservation posts with markers. Those are the two requests that we filed. I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. Amy, do you want to go first?
So this one, we did also call back in the peer review consultant for the notice of intent, which is Bob Gray, and I see that he is on the call now, so I'm going to ask him to unmute. But we did send around the findings of a site visit that was performed by Greg, myself, Bob, Frank, and Penny. And we took a look at the property, both properties as a whole with respect to the amendment request, and actually came up with a host of other things and comments. So I'll turn it over to Bob to report out what he found, and then you guys can go around if you want.
Okay.
We good?
Yeah, good, Bob. Thanks for being
Okay.
on. Hope you're feeling better.
It's been a long haul, but I'm feeling better. Thank you. On this, these two projects here, first of all, one of the things that we discussed at the onsite was the fact that the plants that were proposed to be planted as a buffer to the salt marsh were actually the wrong plants. They were from the original list, not the revised list. And it's important because the original list, which actually are the plants that got planted, are not real saltwater tolerant. And that was why we had requested a revision, which was produced. And unfortunately, the salt tolerant plants were not put out there and the non-salt tolerant plants were put in. Many of them didn't look too healthy, but it was early spring when we went to take a look. I don't know if anyone's had a chance to go back and take a look at them, but my recommendation would be for Brad Holmes to replace those plants with the salt tolerant plants that we had requested be put into that location. As far as the berm is concerned, I will have to defer to the commission to decide on what basis you decided to have the berm altered in several spots to allow for more water to come into that area. But the point that we tried to review in the field was the fact that it was in the order of conditions and the order wasn't contested, that is, it wasn't appealed. So this is kind of a late in the game to come back and ask for an amendment to change an order. I think it should have been questioned at the time it was put into place when the appeal period was still in place. But maybe there's some middle ground. Maybe there's some way to make both parties equally happy on this. The other issue, I think, was sort of resolved. I may have missed part of this, but there was a proposal to have a swale between the two properties. Apparently, the parties decided the swale was no longer necessary and a fence was put up. And I believe as long as the fence meets constraints of the flood code, that should be okay. The only other thing that sort of jumped out at me, and I think several of the members commented on it, was that we were not feeling that the construction met the constraints of the FEMA code. But that's really a call from the building inspector. So as long as the commission refers the matter to the building inspector and has that reviewed, it's his call to decide whether or not the building as it's presently constructed meets the flood code. I didn't think I thought there was just too much freeboard. I didn't think there was enough spacing between the slats and so forth on the underside of those buildings. So those are my comments on 36 and 36R.
Great, thank you, Bob. You'll stay on here because we've got something after that. And if any of the commission members have any questions, appreciate it. Penny, you went out to the site.
Yeah, one thing, I don't know if Bob mentioned the split rail fence that they don't want. Greg said they don't want to do that. They just want to do posts. I feel very strongly the split rail fence needs to go right down the middle of that open area. And the plantings, there aren't enough plantings there, that's for sure. We are desperately trying to make sure nobody parks over there. and that we do have free flowage water when a storm does come in. The berm is not as much a concern of mine as the plantings. The plantings definitely have to be redone. And the split rail fence, no, I think that needs to go up, not the post, the fence.
I would agree with that, Penny, because I don't think the posts are going to be enough of a deterrent to
Yeah.
parking. Whereas if you have the fence up there, someone's literally going to have to, plow down the fence to park in the area they shouldn't be parking.
Right.
Whereas if there's just a couple of posts, many people won't even know what the posts mean. And all of a sudden you'll be coming by on a follow-up inspection and you'll see a car parked on the other side of the post right in the area that's been planted.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Penny, is there anything else you want to?
No, I believe I'm all set. Thank you, Frank.
Okay. Jen?
I think much of it has really been covered. I feel like I think this was alluded to by Bob Gray, but the structure underneath the houses, from the piles, or I can't remember what they're on right there, is very permanent and no water can flow through there. It almost looks like it's actually been insulated because you can see insulation sticking out from the front of the street. So that would be one of the things that I would be calling out as a something to figure out how we can remediate that. Other than that, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Brendan?
I'm not really sure. I guess again, kind of echoing what other people have said, I really don't have much more to add.
Okay. Andy?
Yeah, not much more to add. I think the fence makes sense to me, getting the right plants out there. And I'm having a hard time recalling just why we were thinking about the breaks in the berm. If anyone feels strongly about that or has more specific reasoning for why we did that, I'd be open to hearing it. But as of now, I guess I'm okay with leaving it.
Okay. Richard?
I would echo Andy. I don't remember why we broke up the berm or put that as a as an item. But I also echo Penny on everything else.
Amy, in a situation like this, do we take a butter input? Is there anybody on for this one?
You know what, you do, because it's a public hearing.
Okay.
So it would definitely be something that abutters could weigh in on. That's why we put a legal ad out for it. And I do not see any hands up at this point in time, although we did have people interested in the matter. We had several calls in, so maybe they're just not aware that they're going forward tonight.
Okay. All right. I'd like to, I can add a few things to this maybe. So I think I agree on the fencing versus the posts. Sometimes we allow posts when they're in the woods or edge of a wetland or something like that. But in this case, we want to protect those plants, and I don't see any reason why we'd want to change from the fence. And the plantings, they look pretty weak to me when I was out there. And I think Bob's giving good direction on the plantings. As far as under the house, I don't, Amy said that really flips to the building inspector, but I'm not so, I mean, we're part of what happens under those houses is supposed to allow for a free flow of water. And that was a discussion that came up multiple times when the applicant applied for these projects. I can remember him telling us that impact on the ground surface was only in a matter of square feet because of the diameter of the piers. But that's hardly the case when the whole house is enclosed. So I do think we want to look at that. I'm not sure that we've ever told people how tight the slats could be together or how far apart they should be, or if there's even any actual,
There is code.
okay. So I'm not sure if that's met, but the other house that's in the front has clearly been totally closed in, and that's something that we would not condition. So I think there's, I don't see why we'd even consider any kind of certificate of compliance until that's dealt with. And then, Bob, you might have a little more recollection of this once we talk about it. We had a lot of discussion about that resource area, where the marsh was, what had been altered, what was really marsh, you know, what got filled in over time, created grass because of mowing. We looked at different grasses coming up in different locations and tried to come up with a permittable project for this applicant and where the septic system would go. And we found some evidence of marsh grasses and things where the septic system is now. But at the end of the day, with 2 existing homes on the site and getting those properties elevated, the commission decided to condition these projects with those things in mind. But part of it was that a good portion of this, most of the commission members felt has always been a marsh, and these houses were constructed on a marsh. And then the berm, in a sense, changes the function of that marsh by keeping water out of there. And it was after discussion with commission members that in allowing that area to be filled where the septic system was, and for these houses to be built on it and get that access, that should have a free flow of water. And we didn't ask that the whole berm be removed. I guess the berm was built there back when those houses were sitting very low in the marsh, and to try to protect them from at least some of the storms. But now that the houses were elevated, I also pretty much remember applicants saying that it shouldn't be a problem with the septic systems and whatnot, that these were sealed systems and none of that should be an issue. So that was the discussion with the berm and making a couple of openings and allowing that to flow again. And I can remember butters being interested in this project as well. And that was sort of I felt a compromise that the commission worked out in reviewing some of this. That's my recollection. And I'm glad to hear somebody else's thought on that.
Well, you're correct, Frank, that we looked at several areas on both lots where some of the vegetation was actually salt marsh vegetation. I think what we determined in the final analysis was that there were areas where salt water would come into these lots in pond. And in those areas, you had created saline soils, and you therefore got some of the salt tolerant plants. But we didn't feel that there was a strong enough connection to the original marsh. So we sort of backed off with the idea that there was a salt marsh. It basically was between the front house and the abutting property, where we had a low area where there was quite a bit of salt tolerant grasses. And I guess we were looking at 2 possible directions: the salt water either coming across the street. If you recall, there's a culvert over there.
Yeah.
And salt water comes right up to the street there, so water could top over and it would have gone into that shallow swaled area and trapped the salt water, and over time created the conditions that allowed for salt tolerant plants. The other possibility was that on flood tides, when much of the both lots were underwater with flood water, that as it receded, water would collect in the low areas. But I think you've made the proper decision back when you permitted this. These were existing lots with houses. I think you have to, as a commission, decide whether or not the condition you imposed relative to the berm was the right decision, and it wasn't challenged for several months, if not years, and all of a sudden it's being challenged now. So I guess you have to decide whether or not this is a little too late for that challenge.
Okay, thank you. You guys have heard a couple of other pieces put in. Does anybody else want to add a piece? That includes you, Greg.
If I could make some comments, thank you.
Sure.
Regarding the plantings, the commission approved a specific list of plants for this property. That those plants have not been properly installed. There is an outstanding order of conditions, and the plantings are going to have to be required before your certificate is issued. So absolutely, the plantings will be supplemented to comply with the original plans. I hear the comments regarding the split rail fence instead of the amendment request to do markers. I'll withdraw the request to do the markers and we'll go with the split rail fence as originally permitted. That makes sense to me. I understand the reason why that's in place. Regarding the berm, the applicant was never involved in discussions with removing the berm. That was added into the order of conditions. The septic system itself, it's a monolithic septic tank. It is a pressure dosed system. It is made to function in areas that have high groundwater table. I would be concerned if it was in an area that regularly had flooding above the top of the septic system. And I think that's the scenario you're going to have if you remove the berm. The berm was put in place to limit the amount of times that lower area would flood, and that's exactly what it does. So our amendment would be just to leave the berm in place. Regarding the foundations, I will follow up with the building inspector. The applicant obviously filed plans of those foundations with the building department. FEMA certificates have been issued on those, and occupancy permits have been issued for that rear building. I don't know about the front building for an occupancy yet, but they're not in a velocity zone. In a velocity zone specifically, you would require spacing between the slats. This is in an AE zone. An AE zone, you're actually allowed to have a poured concrete foundation. So while the applicant went with piles here, and then certainly I'm not saying that he didn't fill in between the piles here and create an enclosure in that lower space, I will defer to the building inspector and I will follow up with him and get a little bit more information on the footprint of those in the areas that are required in an AE zone. Regarding the procedure, there's nothing outlined anywhere in your regulations or the state's regulations that limit when an applicant can come in and request an amendment for an order of conditions. You can come in the day after it's issued. You can come in 2 years later. We've decided to come in at this point and ask for an amendment. An amendment is when the applicant comes in, requests something of the commission gets to review it and determine whether it's appropriate or not to issue. It can be requested because of, a change in status of the project, a change in design. It can be requested for any of those reasons. An appeal is typically where an applicant appeals something, in this case, not only to the DEP, but because of the local bylaw, would also have to go to Superior Court. We didn't appeal the order of conditions here. It would have cost the applicant thousands of dollars. It would have cost the town thousands of dollars to go to Superior Court as well, and it would have tied this up for years. We felt the best avenue was to come in, speak directly with the commission.
We lost you, Greg.
With a request for an amendment. And much time has lapsed, then so be it.
Mr. Chairman, can I make
If
a
you-
couple of comments?
Sure.
First, through you, I'd like to ask Greg when they're proposing to do the plantings.
Greg, can you
I
hear
don't
that?
know. I don't know the timeline for doing the plantings.
Okay, so here would be my point, Greg. We're actually getting to the point in the spring where it's almost too late to do plantings. So generally you shoot for mid-May as the cutoff date for plantings, especially in coastal areas. So if plantings are going to be done, they're best done in the fall, and that could be through your consultation with Brad Holmes. But
Yeah.
I think the commission should get in writing a plan that has a target date that says come September 15th or September 25th or whatever it is, we will implement the planting plan. My fear of doing it now is that we've already reached the point in the spring where the temperatures are popping into the high 70s, mid 80s. We're even projected to get a few temperatures in the near future here in the 90s. If you put some of these plants in, first of all, it's stressful to transplant, and it's real stressful to transplant in hot weather. And I have a feeling that here we've got the added problem with an occasional high tide, which is going to bring salt water into the area. So we have a complication of factors here, and we can eliminate one of those by not planting at this time of the year. It's just too late. They've lost their window. When we met you out there several weeks ago, if Brad had followed up immediately and said, here, I'd like to implement the plan, get those plants in. If he had got those plants in at that time the following week, they would be somewhat established now and they would have a pretty good chance to survive the summer. But if you put them in now, I would say 90% of them will die. The only other comment I want to make is following up. You said you would meet with the building inspector and to make sure that the commission is covered relative to whether or not those enclosures are compliant with FEMA. Is it possible to get something in writing from the building official that says, yeah, they're FEMA compliant? I thought I heard you say there's already been a FEMA certificate issued for both properties.
That is correct.
Now, does that mean when that FEMA certificate is issued that the property is in full compliance?
No, it puts it on record with the building department what the foundation type is, and FEMA can audit that at any point. I know FEMA just recently, I think, conducted an audit in the town of Scituate. I don't know if they selected these properties for their review or not.
Okay.
But I will ask the building inspector.
All right.
For that.
Thank you.
Any commission members? Richard?
I'm good for now.
Penny?
I just, I don't see the harm. I said before, the berm didn't matter to me, but just a couple of openings. What's the big deal, Greg? Have a couple of openings. We're not asking to pull the whole berm out, but just so there is a little more flow there. So I agree with Frank on that. On the berm, we didn't say you had to take the whole thing out. Just put a couple of openings in there. Thank you.
The wording in the condition is 3 20-foot sections to be removed with as little disruption of the salt marsh as possible.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah, that
Okay.
is.
That's almost the whole length.
Correct.
I don't think that it's long and it goes
It's
all the way.
long, yeah, that's not really true.
Okay, it looks long, that length to me. All right,
Jen?
Yeah, I I agree with a lot of the comments that have been said.
Okay, Andy?
Nothing further at this point.
Brendan?
I have nothing additional.
Bob, just a question and for Greg. So part of the argument on the berm was that it would keep water out during regular tides, but that berm doesn't work when you get a high tide that overtops it, which seems like that could happen enough of a fair amount of the time. So then how does the water get out?
That berm has a culvert, I believe, with a flapper valve on it, essentially on the up gradient side to relieve the water. It does overtop during, king tides and whatnot, but not on a regular basis.
Yeah, I just don't remember seeing anything that relieved the water from there, because then to me, it would seem like we'd be holding water in there, which would be even more detrimental to the septic. But
where is the septic? I thought it was on the other side of the house.
the septic or the leaching area is elevated, but the pump chambers and stuff, if I'm correct, are at grade or below grade.
In the lower area, correct.
All right,
The tank in the low area, the soil absorption system is up under the driveway.
okay, thank you.
All right, so.
I think you guys can make a motion to
Yeah,
close. Or have you asked for butters yet?
I think we did.
Okay.
Okay,
I'd like to request a continuance to the second meeting of June, if possible, so I can get you additional information on the berm as well as the foundation.
okay. Gerald, do we have room for that? Second meeting in June?
Yeah, we should. So
Okay.
June 22nd, yeah.
22nd.
Okay,
I'll make a motion, we continue the modification of the proposed modifications. The amendment request
okay.
until June 22nd.
So that's a motion from Penny. Do I have a second?
Second from Jen.
Jen, all in favor? Richard?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Frank, yes. Thank you, Greg,
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
too. So are we on to 317 Gannett?
I think so.
Yes,
Oh, Bill's house.
Merrill
We open-
Engineering, so
We already opened that as well, right?
Before we
You
do
need to
this,
open it.
Amy, before we
yeah,
get started, we have Frank for 25 more minutes. Is there anything we want to cover in that time frame?
oh, well, you know what? We could bump down to administrative items quickly if we could. So we don't lose Frank. Frank, that's your call, but just the administrative item in particular is an enforcement. There's a couple of enforcements that I know there's some folks on the call. There's only to a certain extent we can discuss those, but there was the one for Mr. Pacheco.
Okay, well,
Decided to-
I guess maybe a good rationale for that would be that we have Bob on.
Right, right.
So, and
Well,
then once
both you
we're,
and Bob would be on.
so then once we're done, Bob can get off the call. Am I
Yeah.
right?
So we
okay.
could just take that.
All right, but I just, Jen, I
Out of
don't
order.
see a thing for. Jen Smith's gonna find the reading for the 317 Gannett Road while we're
We are
discussing.
gonna do 317 quick?
No, she's just going to look because I don't have the piece to open it, that's all.
Oh. Well, another reason to go on to enforcement, because
Yep, let's do this right now. If Mr. Pacheco's on and we
Okay.
have Bob, let's discuss that.
all right, so just as an update, so we're gonna go from out of the public hearing portion of the meeting quickly into just an administrative item. So this is under meeting. It's not a hearing. But anyways, we have a couple of open enforcements on CJC or 5 Cushing and 208 CJC Highway. So Pacheco and Keaveney, we've been talking about these for a number of meetings now. I do have Bob Gray, Sebastian on the phone here, because the way we last left it was that we were waiting for the restoration plans to be submitted to be considered. While we've had Keaveney's, we don't have final review comments on that yet. And then Mr. Pacheco, we also received his last week, his restoration plan. We don't have comments on that, but I know for 208 in particular, what we just wanted to discuss was possible, if it's possible or not, to release his C of O for his main house there, since it's tied to payment of some contractors. And I think that we would be withholding still the building permit for the boathouse. So I'm not sure how you want to handle it, Frank.
Okay. Well,
I mean, I just think, we could unmute Bob and have him weigh in on what he's looked at, but he hasn't submitted anything formally in writing. In fact, I was going to suggest that we table these discussions for tonight because we don't have any written comment from our peer consultants, but we did get, I did request a plant list with costs associated with the plan that was proposed for Pacheco. And so, I mean, there is a way, if that's verified and whatever, we could maybe consider a margin of error, or at least discuss how it is that we're going to move forward on these as far as a guarantee or performance bond.
yep, well, that's where I would be going with this. If Bob wants to comment briefly, like you said, we need to get his report and have a chance to review it, but Bob, just on sort of a broad brush, what were your thoughts on the planting remediation plan?
The first brush on Pacheco, I thought was a little light on the plantings. I understand there's been a revision in the number of plants. So maybe the consultant is online and can update us on that. But I thought the second.
I think that the first one you reviewed was Keaveney, actually, and the consultant is on the phone on that one. But Bob, I think that's the second one just came in Friday or something like that. So
Well, didn't we get 2 from Brad Holmes? An initial one, and then one with revised plant numbers.
And then a revised one.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to. He upped the numbers based on some comments that I sent along. But what I'd like to hear from both Brad and Mike Ball is I'd like to know when the implementation is planned. As you heard me state in the last case here, we've reached the middle of May. We're in that critical period. These two are not the same as the previous in that these are not necessarily subject to tidal action on spring tides. These are buffer zones, but we're still reaching the point where the daytime temperatures are going to be really too high for transplanting plants. If they are going to go forward, they would have to go forward in the next week. They'd have to give you people some assurances that there's going to be an on-site manager that's going to be responsible for watering these plants. These plants are going to have to be watered judiciously during the rest of May if they're planted this month. So maybe Mike Ball and Brad can let us know what the timeline is.
Those are good points, Bob. And I think just personally, I'd like to see the reports come out to the commission for that. And I guess in making your point, it's really unlikely that they're going to get these plantings done in a timely enough manner. And also given that Situate's already gone into, they're phasing in a water ban. So being able to water these may become an issue as well. I guess I've been having some discussion with Amy, she's already alluded to it, that I think at this stage, it would be prudent for the commission to have some sort of an idea of the monetary value of the replacement and the plantings of both these areas. And then from both Mr. Pacheco and Mr. Keaveney, that we would get a monetary commitment or guarantee that this will actually take place. If we know the value of the plantings on this, then we can look for them to either put up a cash bond or purchase a bond or whatever. We've done this with other projects. If you remember, Toll Brothers still has a bond that we are not letting go yet until we know that all their wetlands plants are done. So it happens more on larger projects, but in many cases where people can't do the plantings in that time, that the commission will take a bond in lieu of having the actual work done. And so I think what we need to have is some sort of idea of what the cost is to do these plantings, and then get enough of a bond from both people. We have allowed Mr. Keaveney to continue, and the primary reason for that was that his house is nowhere near done, and we could issue a cease and desist at any point in time with that. And the cuttings there weren't as large. So that's what my feeling is on it. I'm glad to hear from anybody else. Richard?
I agree that there needs to be a substantial bond, and we have to have an idea in writing of the value of the plantings that are going to be made. And certainly if it has to be in fall, then we still have to know as quickly as possible what's going to be done.
Okay. Penny?
Yeah, no, money on the table before anything.
Jen?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Andy?
That works.
Brendan?
I'm good with that as well.
Okay. So how would we, Amy, you've got a plan that Bob thinks is fairly close to what we need to do or whatever. Get an estimate possibly from the applicant, and then can the commission get one?
Yeah, so we definitely have orders whether they're restoration orders or straight up orders of conditions where there's been performance guarantees for like replications or crossings to guarantee the plantings. So I'm familiar with, how it's set up, but basically it's sort of like, the peer review fund. So it's just a separate fund that where money would stay until the work is done. And as far as assigning a value to that, I do think that realistic plan with not just the cost of the plants, but like Bob said, that labor to install, maintaining the areas, monitoring, and then whatever, like wetland professional oversight as necessary to ensure that the work is going to be done. But that's after we get agreement that the plan is actually what we're looking for, which we don't have yet. It's just a broad brush on, thank you for receiving the plan. I don't know. I think that there's definitely going to be, or I know that there's a strong desire from 208 CJC to at least get permission to issue the final C of O for his main house, since you did allow 5 Cushing to continue to frame, because we do have things to hold on both of those while we work out these details, which I think it's a little bit premature since we don't have the number yet, and we are still looking to them to give us realistic number.
Amy, just a quick one, because is that a separate lot that was cleared, or is it? Oh, so it's all part of the same property?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure
But
that's
there
clear.
is, right. So that's how it all came to be, that we reviewed it for stormwater. You know what I mean? That it's all one lot at this point.
Okay.
At least that's my understanding. I could be wrong, but I don't think that really matters. But we have not, or I have not signed off on the building permit for the boathouse. So I think okaying any work there on 208 would be, other than just getting this restoration settled, would be definitely premature. And perhaps there could be a memorandum of understanding that we're giving you the C of O now, but we're working, while we work on the details, and we expect to have that, wrapped up by such and such a time. And get the plan. And I also agree that I think it's a little late in the season and unrealistic to think that they're going to source and plant the type, what you're looking for and what they're proposing.
Well, just maybe to play the devil's advocate here a little bit. So let's just say that the cost to replant all that is really substantial, and the owner decides that they can't do that. And then in the meantime, they've got a CFC. The only thing we have left on that is an enforcement order and fines.
On both projects, you're saying?
No, right for 208.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that, for the other house, Keaveney's house right now, it's under construction. And if they don't comply with what the commission wants, we can go back to the building department and say, we think you need to give them a cease and desist because they're not in compliance with the commission's orders. And then that house stops, the construction stops. But in the case of 208, that house is done. If they get a certificate of compliance for that house, and then they look at the cost to replace all those trees and decide that they can't afford it, or they don't want to do it, then they've essentially given themselves a great view of the water. And what's our recourse to get that planted?
Was the boathouse on a separate order of conditions?
Yes.
No, I don't think so. It was an
Well,
amendment.
the
wasn't it?
main house was out of resource area. So did the actual construction of the main house did not have orders. If I'm just recalling how it played out.
Yeah.
And then this side lot, which is in between, the two lots on Cushing, there was a request, to clear or at least to the 50 and to build this boathouse. And that's what you permitted, but it was during that process that it kicked in the stormwater review too. So that's where you had the stormwater engineer reviewed, and there are mechanisms for that. And that's when Bob Gray was actually initially brought into this project, just because we reviewed the resource areas at that time. So Bob was familiar with what the site was unaltered. I mean, I'm just thinking that, I agree with you, Frank, that, you know, that's a good point. What happens if they just table that portion of their project once they get the C of O? So, I mean, alternatively, you could place a higher number than would even be like, I don't know, like something hot, like 1.5 times, say, what we think it could be, just in case, just to keep it moving forward. And then, I mean, perhaps it could be reduced once the real number comes out, you know?
Yeah,
Agreed on.
and in the case of some of these projects, as it times out, we can look at some of these and say, all right, they've been planted now for a year or two. It looks like 70% of the plants or whatever are going to make it. And then the bond can be reduced until we're sure that it's all complete.
Now,
Yeah,
are you wrestling with how to get to a number to put into the amount of the bond?
Well, it seems to me like we would get a couple of estimates on a planting plan. And along with the other items that you mentioned, the monitoring, the you know, not only the materials, but the planting, monitoring, how much it would cost to keep these plants alive. And that would be the number that it would take to.
Right.
Right.
And again, Brad hasn't spoken yet, but my understanding would be that Brad would be in a good position to give you somewhat of a good solid figure, because not only is he putting together this plan, but he's actually going to do the physical work. That is, his company would be actually doing the plantings. So they would be sourcing the plant materials. They would have to figure in the labor. They would have to figure in the monitoring period of 2 years, probably have an itemized list of the plants by size and what they cost to put in and what they would cost to replace if some of them don't survive. I don't know if Mike Ball was planning to do the same thing, oversee the planting, or whether that would be done by a landscape company.
Well, we would want the same thing from both of them. And again, right now, the only difference is that we have allowed Mr. Keaveney to continue because his project isn't anywhere near completion. He's not looking for a permanent certificate of compliance. But the same standards would be held to both people.
Yep.
Frank?
Yes, yep.
I believe the question tonight is, we all say, yes, we have to get the figure from Brad, so forth and so on. I feel as though what the question is, are we going to let him get the occupancy permit or not before we have cash on the table? Personally, I say no.
Right, well, cash is kind of a.
That's me, the rest of the board, but I think that's what you're getting at, no?
Yes, but it could be in the form of a bond or some other.
Oh, yeah, no, I understand
surety.
that.
Okay.
It's just, I want something hard and fast that we can fall back on once he gets his occupancy permit.
Right.
That you're 100% right, things could fall apart, and he just has a beautiful view and we have no trees. We need something that we can, if we have to do it, we can do it. We have the funds.
I can only stay on for a few more minutes.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I think we've talked this enough. I mean, just either we wait until we get the amount from verification after Bob's officially reviewed everything, and then we can put they can put a realistic number on it, and then we can either agree or not agree.
Yeah.
And hopefully that can come together quickly, or I don't know, just, I think just maybe go through the commission and let's just try to get what people are thinking and move it. We don't think we need to beat this to death tonight.
Okay, do you want to hear from Mr. Pacheco, Amy?
No. Not really. This is a meeting item, administrative. We have what he submitted.
All right, well, if we took, let's just say this, if we took if we get a census from the commission, maybe we should even take a vote. So that way, if he can get that information to us, that he doesn't have to wait for another meeting to get his certificate of compliance. Does that make sense?
You mean certificate of occupancy
Certificate of occupancy,
for
I'm sorry.
208, yeah.
Right. So in other words, if it's the consensus of the commission that that's what we want, can we vote that now?
Yes.
So that then when he comes in with what we determine to be adequate, that he doesn't have to wait for another meeting to.
Yeah,
to
yeah,
get
but
this
and that's
resolved.
going to be with sign off from your peer reviewer who's on.
Okay.
board.
And the bond, whatever.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a
So we have
bond,
to
yeah,
have
but I
that
don't,
on-
it doesn't have to take to get to another meeting to, to be.
I think that's the part that they're
That's fine.
obviously anxious to move this forward. So if that's, if the commission, well, I'll take a motion and then we'll vote it. And then that way, Mr. Pacheco knows what his has to, and Mr. Keaveney as well. I think we should get that from both of them. Maybe we should give Mr. Keaveney a time frame.
Right, well, so, and it's all mostly hedging on review of the material that they submitted by our peer reviewer who was away and then he was sick, but I mean, either way, we don't want to penalize them because of Bob's schedule.
I understand that.
He's
So-
got it, and I'm sure that comments will be coming soon.
All right, so, but I think
and we need
to be fair with both pieces, I think we also need to give Mr. Keaveney, let's vote this for both of them. But we need to give Mr. Keaveney a deadline as well, whether we give him 30 days or whatever, but I definitely think he should have a deadline. He's coming away there. And we need to get that.
Yeah, we need a bond from him too. Is that what you're saying, Frank?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Right, and I think it's clear during this conversation what the commission is looking for in order to establish that number. So it's
Okay.
not just the cost of the plants. Well, number one, it's agreement that the plantings as proposed are what we're looking for. Number two, it's the cost and then everything else we already rattled out, like the labor to install, maintenance to keep them alive, monitoring them, oversight by, as necessary by a professional wetland scientist.
Yep.
So it's all that.
Okay. So does somebody want to make a motion to that effect?
I'll make the motion, but I don't know how to word it. I make a motion that once we have in hand the plantings, the price tag, and our consultant and the board agrees with it, and the people are ready to give us a bond.
No, that we have, so we have a bond,
So we have a bond in hand,
or surety, whatever.
yeah. Then they can go forward with
I can see.
the occupancy permit for Mr. Panchenko. And we also want a date that Mr. Keavy has 30 days to get his into us too. Bond
Does that seem clear enough?
around the mulberry bush. Sorry, Jen.
Anybody want anything to that motion before?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor? Richard?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
And Frank, yes. Okay. Good enough. And I'm going to leave you guys.
Frank, before you leave,
Yes.
do we have Brad and Mike Ball on the call?
We don't have Brad on the call.
Okay, well, out through the chair and through Amy, can both Mike Ball and Brad be sure to send me what they consider to be the latest plan and any information they want reviewed, so I can put this into high gear and get this reviewed before your next meeting in June.
Okay, yeah, well, I'd like to get it as quick. I mean, obviously, these folks really want to move forward, Bob, and I know
Right.
you've had some health issues and whatnot, so we definitely could use your quick input on this, and we appreciate it. So the
Yeah, well,
quickest way to,
Bob, you have everything that we have at this point, but it sounds like based on what we've discussed this evening, that there will be additional information forthcoming.
so
Okay.
Bob's point is get it to him now.
Yep.
Tomorrow.
Whatever I need, those guys have got to get it to me.
Okay. Yep, that makes
Okay.
sense. Thank you, Bob.
All right. Thank you, guys. Have a
Good
great
night.
night.
Okay, do you, what does Jen do to read these other ones? Sorry. Jen's gonna email you the
Okay.
openers.
Right, so now we're going to return to the public hearing portion of the meeting and go to 317 Gannett. And Frank is going to leave.
I guess I could open that and then step out, so that's
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
All right. On May
Good idea.
16th, 2022 at 6 PM, the Town Hall, Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700, Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of William Limbacher for work related to a septic system at location 317 Gannett Road, Scituate, Mass. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the virtual meeting will be available on the agenda posted on the town website. Great. Have a good night.
Bye, Frank.
Bye, Frank.
So I believe
Okay.
this could be Deb Keller because it's Merrill, so I'm going to unmute Deb.
Okay.
Septic.
Work.
Okay, Deb's on.
Deb Keller with Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors. As Frank just read, notice of intent before you is for 317 Gannett Road. The applicant and owner, William Limbacher, is looking to install a Title V compliant septic system to replace the existing cesspool located on his property. We have ECR completed the wetland delineation. There is salt marsh to the east along the existing driveway, transitioning into a bordering vegetated wetland to the rear or south of the property. The entire property is within the flood zone with a AE elevation of 12. So this is a septic repair. We're looking to keep the system as far out of the buffer as possible. It's a bit difficult. We have kept all of the work out of the 50-foot buffer, but it is between the 50 and the 100. Do not have Board of Health approval yet. The plan has been submitted to Board of Health.
There we go.
We've received comments as of yet, but he is looking to sell the property, so there is sort of a time commitment that he's looking to try to move this along as well. As shown now, we've got the plan. You can see on the abutting property to the west on the top of the page is your flood zone. So everything on the outside, including this property, is within the AE elevation 12 zone. We did put in red the erosion control silt sock, sort of tied it into the existing garage and ran it along the existing driveway. Everything does drain from the west to the east towards the salt marsh, as mentioned on the easterly side. It is a raised system. We are asking for a couple of variances from Board of Health. One for, since it is high groundwater here, use the SIP analysis, FERC test, as well as looking for a reduction in the separation to seasonal groundwater. So, Board of Health variances that we're looking for.
Okay. Thanks. Thanks, Deb. Amy, what are your thoughts?
Okay, so, I do, I mean, clearly this is something that's needed if it's a failed system, so, that would be good. We all need a working Title V system. Resource areas are, buffer to salt marsh and land subject to coastal storm flowage for 12. I guess I mean, there's stuff, and there's salt marsh across the street, you know, there is to the south, to the east. All around, it's kind of a tough site. One thing is, I don't think that, I think I guess I have one question I have is this septic repair in kind for the size of the house? It's not an increase in bedrooms, is it, Deb?
No, it's a 3-bedroom. The minimum Title V system is a 3-bedroom design.
Okay, yeah. I mean, clearly the garage isn't particularly in a great location with respect to the edge of the resource area. I had a few comments like that when I went to the site, but I don't know. I was just thinking, like, down the road, if this becomes a raised rebuild or something like that, you're probably going to want to take a harder look at the resource areas. But I don't really think there's a lot you can do on this site other than probably just repair the septic. So that's about all I have. No DEP comment, and Board of Health is not approved yet.
Okay, thanks, Amy. Penny, what do you have?
It's a difficult site, marsh all along. It's an old system. You know, they're doing the best they possibly can there. Nothing
Okay.
else.
Richard.
And that's the best they can do with what they got, and it's an improvement. I basically hate it on the one hand, but it's probably the best they can do. So no other questions.
I guess we'll take it. Brendan.
I have no other questions. Yeah.
Andy.
All set.
All right. Yeah, I would echo Amy's comments, just about any future site work would probably trigger something with the garage, but
Sure.
that is not a problem for Deb to solve. So I think we might be good on that. Anybody, abutters. Do we have any abutters for this one? If you have thoughts, you can press raise hand and we will call on you.
Doesn't look like it.
No.
All right.
Go motion.
Go ahead.
Close.
All right.
Somebody want to second that, please?
I'll second that, Brendan.
Oh, Brendan coming in with the second. Richard.
Yes, good.
Andy.
Yes.
Ben, yes. All right.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Deb.
Nice evening.
You too. Now the RDAs.
Yep. So, my gosh, this is the first time I've actually opened one. All right. Let me know what I do wrong, Penny. But we have 134 Oceanside. So on May 16th, 2002, at their 6 p.m. meeting at Town Hall, the Scituate Conservation Commission will act on the request of David Friedman for a determination of applicability of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act and the Scituate Wetlands Bylaw for activities related to converting area of backyard to grass and after the fact work on driveway at dwelling at location 134 Oceanside Drive, Scituate, Mass. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access meeting will be available on the agenda posted on town website.
Okay.
So I unmuted Dave Friedman here. I think he's going to self-present and just let us know a little bit about what happened.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. So first, I didn't even know that I needed to apply for this, the request for determination of applicability. I was redoing my very old gravel driveway. And you can see in these pictures, it was a gravel driveway that had been maybe put in 20 years ago, and it was becoming almost like a hard pack. So I hired somebody to scrape out that hard pack and put in nice new gravel. And I replaced, there was a perimeter of old concrete, 3-inch wide, like an edging. And I replaced that with, as you can see in the picture, granite. And so that was done and came out great. So I replaced the gravel with new gravel effectively. And the other option is I have, as you can see in the pictures on the right, stone along my seawall that on major storms, when water comes over, that stone ends up on my lawn. And I'm sort of getting tired of removing my stone from my lawn. And I have a neighbor here that has grass right up to the seawall. I said, let's just try grass and see if that works a little bit better. So that's the whole project.
All right, thanks, Dave.
Yep.
Amy, do you have any comments?
You say Andy?
Oh, he said Amy. Do you
Oh.
want to jump in there, Andy?
Yeah, Andy, you
I
can
don't want to, but I thought you said.
Okay.
Well, all right, so I'll just be quick. I mean, I think that appears to meet the requirements of a negative finding. We thank you, Dave, for coming, quickly to file after you found out that this was jurisdictional. But yes, indeed, this area certainly is jurisdictional. It's ocean front and it's land subject to coastal storm flowage. So anytime you alter the ground surface, you would need to permit with the Conservation Commission. Permeable structures are something that we do like to see as opposed to solid paved areas. So that's why I think that a negative is going to be okay here. No other comments.
Awesome. Thanks, Amy. Go around the table. Brendan.
I'm all good.
All right. Penny.
No, just next time, Dave, come to us first.
And I learned my lesson.
Okay. Good guy.
Andy
Looks good to me.
and Richard.
Looks good.
Great. And I would agree. It's quite the transformation from those above pictures. So well done, Dave.
Thank you very much.
I'll make a motion for a -3.
Yeah. Anybody?
I'll second that.
First,
What, Penny?
was there anybody in the audience?
No.
We didn't get there yet. Anybody in the audience for this one?
It does not appear that there is.
Okay. Can I get that motion again?
Make a motion for a -3.
A
Second that.
All right. Penny,
Yep.
Andy,
Yes.
Jen, yes.
David, that's good. Negative is good.
All right, good. Thank you. Yeah, I wasn't sure about that.
Yep.
It's opposite day. What is the next one? Okay.
Water main.
Water.
Let me pull up my paper. Okay. On May 16th, 2022, during their 6 p.m. meeting at Town Hall, the Scituate Conservation Commission will act on the request of the town of Scituate for a determination of the applicability of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act and the Scituate Wetlands Bylaw for activities related to water main replacement along main roads, such as Central Ave and River Street from Silver Road to Old Mouth Road at location Hummerock, Mass. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the meeting will be available on the agenda posted on town website. All right.
Sure.
Who
Good
do we,
evening.
oh, we've got
It appears
Mr.
we have,
McCarthy.
yep, Sean McCarthy and representative from Environmental Partner Group.
Hello.
Yep, Sabrina Castaneda.
Yes.
Good evening, Madam Vice
Sean.
Chair. Sean McCarthy with the Scituate DPW. And as Amy stated, Sabrina is on me with it, this evening as the project engineer from Environmental Partners. Before you tonight is the replacement of all of the water mains in Hummerock. To date, this has been our most challenging, only due to the records, the house placements, the gravel drives, but the intent here is to replace the water mains, provide new fire protection down some of the side streets where small 2-inch services are feeding multiple homes. The proposal is mostly in the roadway or traveled way, although we're coming across a couple of areas where the main is tucked in behind a series of homes. And we're trying to look at that now to really determine how their services are fed and how the best replacement will be for some of these. Like I said, there's a couple of areas like this where it's homes behind homes being serviced by a very small service. But I'll turn it over to Sabrina. She's the project engineer on this event, and she can give you some more details on the project.
Great, thanks, Sean. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. So Sean essentially covered the majority of it. And I think really the main goals of this project is, replacing the aging infrastructure in the Hummerock neighborhood to make sure that everyone can get their water, safely and reliably as needed. As Sean said, the vast majority of this replacement is within the traveled roadway, and essentially we are just replacing water main where we already believe there to be water main and have records of there being water main in the ground. In total, at this point, the amount of water main we are proposing to replace is about 28,000 to 29,000 feet. In several sections, we are upsizing the main. We are creating new loops with the water main to improve, proposing to improve water quality throughout the neighborhood as well. This project, as I'm sure you are very familiar with this neighborhood, does, conceptually cross through several resource areas. We did provide the GIS map that showed kind of all those interlapping zones within the RDA. Our goal by sticking to the traveled way and already pre-disturbed areas is to really minimize impact to those resources as much as possible, if not entirely. Within the submission, we did delineate out the riverfront areas, tried to propose filter sock within those limits as well to kind of, pay attention to that buffer, make sure we minimize any sort of impact that we could. I know this is a very big and large project. We are looking forward to working with the Conservation Commission on this to make sure that we, put something together that is in line with everything as it should be and benefits the neighborhood at the end of the day.
Great, thanks, Sabrina. Sean, does that cover it for you guys?
Yeah, she did a great job. Yep.
5 gold stars. Amy, what do you got?
All right, a couple of questions, and I just actually had to step out, so if you covered this and I missed it, then I'm sorry, but anyways. So did we go over where the construction lot's gonna be, and what about storage of piping on the beach? Is there gonna be one central location? Is it gonna be the parking lot? Like, when is it gonna happen, the project, like that type of thing? Is it funded? Like,
Yeah, good questions, Amy. And we've been talking this all along, only because we're watching, we have a current water main project going on. And, we're having discussions with the contractor about getting material and the cost increase on material and the escalation on paving. And in fact, 2 or 3 weeks ago, Plymouth Water had a seminar, and they brought in people saying, we're going to see a shortage of materials. We're already seeing it. I'm sure they're going to. So time for the project is really being looked at, not only to availability of material, but cost of material. Something we were pushing for to get out, of course, not construction during the summer, It would have been fall through the winter. Now is, if we put out a project this large, can anybody get the material to do it? So Sabrina's still working on the construction documents to put out to bid. Like I said, there's a couple of areas where records are sparse. You know, we're trying to work with the water department to figure out the best way to get back to some of these homes. Some of the water mains aren't up what people are using as traveled ways, and we would end up putting them within it, only for maintenance and repair in the future. If people are already using some of these private roadways off to the side, it's easy to find the repair. That's one of the big concerns. We have a huge loss of basically a natural resource, water, in this area, and a lot of the breaks and the leaks don't surface because of the good material out there. There is a large percentage of unaccounted for water in the Hummerock area. That was one of the reasons this got pushed up ahead. Unfortunately, now it's cost and materials. We haven't focused on a loading zone, but I could see the parking lot being used, especially in the off season, for pipe material, store equipment, you know, during the night off the street, unless, you know, the work was occurring on a side street. Of course, they won't block the traffic or emergency vehicles, but to keep it somewhere safe overnight. Yeah, we're still working through some of those things, Amy, but very good question. Yeah. I don't know if that answered it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it does. That's good to know. I mean, clearly this is got to be the most challenging area in town because it's a barrier beach and it's constantly, you know, moving and shifting and migrating and changing, especially with the impacts of climate change and so on. We've got areas that are subject to severe storm damage and flooding. And so again, like as far as elevations for the piping go, I know that this project too is in the linear area that was part of the proposed road elevation project that the town considered a couple of years back. And I was just wondering if this project takes into consideration future elevation of Central and how it does, and like are the I don't know, just the elevation of the piping, how was that determined?
Yeah, right now it would remain at its 5-foot elevation from grade, and that's for freezing protection.
Yeah.
If the roadway elevated over that, it would certainly make some modifications to some of the gates, some of the adjusting equipment in terms of extending it upward. But if it elevated over, that's okay. It's when it gets short or less than 5 that you worry about the freezing. So right now it's being held at you know, the 5-foot elevation. I know we talk about doing the project outside of the summer, the busy time, and you know, it would be something that would be washed through the winter. The good thing when you look at restoration sometimes is a lot of these roads are gravel, which doesn't require an asphalt plant to be open. The restoration can occur immediately. So a contractor, you know, could work through the winter regarding, or, you know, in the event of a storm. Of course, we would shut them down early and make sure everything was cleaned up and out of harm's way to the parking lot, which seems to be pretty safe from storm events. But they could manage. And now with the escalation of prices, we're even talking about splitting this into 2, only for money reasons. You know, doing maybe from Marshfield Ave to the north and then Marshfield Ave to the south to make it affordable. You know, we'll see what happens when the bids eventually come in, but that's how it's starting to trend with the escalation we're seeing currently in buying water pipe and brass fittings and things like that.
Thanks, Sean. I mean, generally with utility projects, I mean, this is resource area, so it's a little bit different, but for a utility project, you know, we usually do accept a determination as a acceptable form of permitting, because it's generally just a kind of a trench and fill job where your impacts are very temporary and you move along. So I guess I'm going to take that same opinion here, that it appears that this could meet the requirements of a negative finding.
Right.
Thanks, Amy. Richard, this is your neighborhood.
Yeah, it is right in front of my house. Yeah, this has been known to be something needed for many, many years. And Sean's right, everything is sand, so water that leaks just soaks down. It's what we normally look for, but in this case, it's probably costing the town a lot of money. My question has nothing really to do with whether or not this gets moved along, but it's a curiosity question, and you've referred to it several times. Oceanfront Road is, I think, what you're referring to, where people have over the years decided that their property is extended and they could build driveways and build other things, buildings right in the middle of a private way, to be sure, but right in the middle of the street, which has blocked what used to be an open road many, many years ago to an interrupted road, interrupted from Brunswick to Postscript, and from Hawthorne to Oliver, and from Concord, Dodge, Newell, and Newport. I wish you luck in being able to work that out. And I'm also very well aware, where my wife has lived here all her life, that many of the water pipes, not mains, but the pipes, do not go by the streets. They go diagonally through other people's yards, not their own yards, but other people's yards, in order to get water. It's going to be a very difficult project, but man, is it needed, and has been needed for a long time. So I have no objection, but I'm very curious as to how you think you can handle Humrock Beach. Humrock Beach Road, for
right,
to be clear.
Yeah, unfortunately, you raised many roads that we're focusing on for trying to find those records. As you say, how they tuck in between homes. Every time we end up in some of these beach areas up in Minot, we had the same series.
issues.
You shut off one service and you really shut off three. It's going to be a challenge. Environmental Partners was one of the reasons we picked for this project. We worked with one of their field engineers out at Cedar Point on the sewer project. And I tell you, he has everybody's phone number that lives out there. He was in close communication with them, and that's it's going to be tricky, especially if we do it off season, because come summertime, when they ask for their water to be turned on, where they reconnected, you're right. It's going to be complicated. I hope we don't find too many electrical services now being used for water services. We come across that sometimes, or whatever people to happen to have in the house, to go from, Uncle Joe's to Aunt Sally's house 70 years ago. But yeah, there are some tricky areas, and we're focusing on how to really make those work. Most of it is pretty straightforward, although the Central Ave water main, as you head towards the north, towards Fourth Cliff, is very close to those homes. Some of them are under the front staircases. We've had some leaks that we've had to repair. That'll all come out into the street. We're trying to find a way to keep things clean. The street gets cleaned up after storm events. A lot of material gets pushed to the side, and then it's difficult to turn off or turn on a property. So we have a plan to keep all the shutoffs in the street, the meters within the street, those always get exposed. So even after a storm event, they're accessible to the water department.
Right.
A little more thought into this project than typical ones, but you raise very good points.
Well, and as I said, I'm totally in favor of it. It's really been needed for a long time. I can't understand why we're last on the list, but that's beside the point. But I do
Far from
know,
last.
I do know a lot of the people down here that have been here most of their lives, and let me know. I might be able to put you in touch with someone who can tell you where some of the pipes are that you may not really realize.
Yeah, that'll be very helpful.
Yeah, I can certainly try to do that. But I'm
Absolutely.
all in favor of it, but that's going to be a challenge up in Humrock Beach. Central and River Street shouldn't be a big deal.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm
Are
done.
there community groups down there? I know at Cedar Point it was
South
very
River.
easy to send out an email and hit almost everyone.
South River.
Oh, really? Okay, great.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
something we'll look forward to getting in contact with. Great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure. I'm done, Jen.
Are you sure?
I am. I've said enough tonight. Too much Humrock for one night.
Oh, never. Penny.
No, I'm all set. Sounds like a good project. Good luck to you, Sean.
Thank you.
Brendan.
I'm all set.
Andy.
All set.
All right, and I'm good too. All right, thanks, Sean. Thanks, Sabrina. Oh wait, we're not done. Abutters.
Mhm.
I'm just eager. It's 8:30.
Eager
Do we have
Right.
any abutters for this one? Raise your hand if you do.
It doesn't,
Doesn't look like it.
Okay, I'll make a motion for a -3.
I'll second it.
All right, Andy,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
Jen, yes. All right. We are good on that.
Great.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very
Fantastic.
much.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Thank you. Thanks, Sabrina.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks, Sabrina.
All right. Here we go. On May 16th, 2022, during their 6 p.m. meeting at the town hall, the Scituate Conservation Commission will act on the request of Tim and Laura White for a determination of the applicability of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Scituate Wetlands Bylaw for activities related to the after the fact removing of fallen trees, regrading, resurfacing, and planting new trees at dwelling at location 181 Edward Foster Road, Scituate, Mass. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access meeting will be available on the agenda posted on town website. All right.
okay, we have the property owner on the call here, Tim White.
Good evening. Tim
Tim.
White, 181 Edward Foster Road.
Hi, Tim.
Over the winter, we lost three large poplars. You can see them lying there on the right-hand side. One relatively new poplar that we planted maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and a flowering pear snapped off. So on May 28th, I emailed Amy letting her know that we had 3 down trees that we wanted to remove the week of April 4th. And while we were going to be there, we we're going to have the arborist trim up the existing trees that were left. That work on our end got delayed due to the weather till approximately April 11th. Due to a volume of work, Amy wasn't able to get back to me until the 13th of April. And she, at that time, suggested we file a MAP, a minor activities permit, which we were fine with. But at that point in time, the work had already begun. I had scheduled 2 loads of loam to come in to fill in where the stumps were removed. If you're looking not removed where they had fallen, if you look to the lower left, you can see how the whole trees came out of the ground, and to replace and regrade the tracks from the equipment that we had to bring in to get to the trees. The trees are not in a resource zone. They're maybe 400 feet away, but we're enclosed. We have zero access with the exception of Paul Marabito's lot on Henry Lane. So the equipment had to drag the trees out to Henry Lane with an excavator, which tore up the ground pretty good. So that work was ongoing. The material was coming in and being graded. Amy received some calls about fill being brought on site. And so she emailed me on the 14th asking me to stop, which we did, but that work had already been completed at the time. I believe since then, Amy's come out and taken a look at the site.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Amy.
Okay, yeah, so it looks like the Whites had some winter storm damage and took care of some groundwork without permits, but was willing to file the after the fact filing. And I mean, they'll clearly that it's oceanfront properties. Part of it is probably within the 100, but the rest of it is just within land subject to coastal storm flowage. I mean, it doesn't look like he created new open area, just regraded what was already there and took care of the storm damage from the fallen trees. So I think that this is meeting the conditions of a negative finding.
And Amy has asked us to plant some trees, which we're fine with. We anticipate replacing the poplars in kind. The flowering peach has just never done very well, so we're probably gonna try a willow tree there. I will say, in order for us to plant and get any survival rate on any of these things, we usually have to bring in some better material to make them so that we would like, if we're going to plant, to be able to bring in some planting material, some loam when we excavate. It's kind of a clay area there, but we're happy to do that work.
Sorry, I didn't realize I was on mute. Amy, do you have any concerns with the bringing in of materials to support?
Yeah, I don't think that Tim's talking about changing elevations. He's just talking about augmenting the soil. Yeah, that would, we can recognize that in the paperwork.
Okay, great. Let's go around the horn. Andy.
I do not have any questions on this one.
Penny.
As long as it's out of the resource area, I'm all set.
Okay. Richard.
I'm good. Just next time, do it before the fact instead of after, but it's fine.
Brendan.
I'm good.
Who's this?
All right.
Jen, I can see that we do have Kevin P's iPhone, so I'm gonna just unmute that hand.
Hi,
Hi,
good
Kevin.
evening. Hi, how are you? And I know it's late. I just like to counter a little bit what Mr. White said.
Do you mind sharing your name and address?
Sure. My name is Kevin Kearns. I'm at 179 Edward Foster, so I'm an abutter to Mr. White. So Mr. White's property has consistently flooded, even in small and moderate rainstorms. What he's showing you isn't exactly all the work that he did. So Mr. White has proceeded to build up a significant portion of his lawn in the front of his house, which he's not showing you, to effectively put a 6 to 10 inch berm so water is displaced away from his house. We are concerned that the purpose of that project, which no pictures are here, was to displace water to the side. So effectively, think of a big square, he has turned it into a rectangle. And so therefore, what we would like to request is a town-approved engineering review to ensure that Mr. White is not displacing water on our property. We have sent pictures to Jen. There were multiple trucks, trailer trucks brought in, sand, as well as significant rise in the lawn, of which if you came out, you could see that on the property. So thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. I'm not familiar with the front of the property. Amy, do you have any context on that?
Well, I mean, I did take a look at the property and I think the bottom right photo, you can kind of see how there's the lawn, the scape or whatever is not level. So it's not even topography out there. But what I saw, I didn't see anything that looked like it would divert storm flows. That's just my opinion. I mean, it's a big open area that's prone to flooding. This site has had orders in the past. Some of you are probably familiar with the property. It's right out the end of First Cliff. Yeah, I think it meets the requirements of a negative finding.
Okay. Any other abutter? Oh, Penny?
Yeah, we have had issues out here in the past, Amy, numerous issues.
Yeah, I'm well aware, Penny.
Oh, okay, so I did not get out there to see what this other gentleman's talking about. I don't know what to say because obviously a neighbor has a concern of stuff that's been going on out there. And I really don't know what to do or say.
Jen?
So can we unmute Mr. White again?
Hi, Penny. So yes, we've had numerous orders of conditions and we've worked our way through them with Concom. And we've determined that the area was historically mowed, misrepresented as wetlands at the time, right? And we've satisfied all the orders of conditions and we've put all those issues to bed. And in this particular case, we did reach out and acknowledge that this was outside of the resource zone. Frankly, a little bit new to me that it was land subject to coastal floodage. I know no flowage that was contingent on this. But all those previous conversations and issues that you're referring to have been dealt with through Concom and put to bed.
Amy, what are what is the impact of this? Can we, I guess, for the rest of the commission, do you guys have any additional thoughts if this should continue, or I guess looking for a feeling from the rest of the board?
Jen? Jen?
Yeah, I've been out to this property a number of times and from conversations with Mr. White and from on-site viewing of the property, I don't think that, albeit Phil was brought on and a little bit of grading was done, but I don't think that it was anything that was significantly altered the elevations that pre-existed. And I believe that the storm damage was something that honestly wouldn't even come through necessarily as an RDA. As Mr. White said, those are post-storm damage cleanup actions or sometimes that are just administratively approved through the office without a formal filing. So because of the amount of truckloads that were reported to be, whatever, because of the reports from the neighbor, it was looked at and it appeared consistent with what had been previously there. But by all means, if you guys want to delay the finding, I don't think that there's any harm in that. And Frank is very familiar with the site too, but you could have an on-site to take a look at it closer and evaluate the on-site on your own too.
Jen,
Okay, Richard, do you have anything?
I have been out there, and I agree with what Amy said. I just didn't see anything other than work that would normally be done and need to be done to replace the trees. So, you know, I don't see any reason. That's just me. I just don't see any reason to hold this up.
Okay. Brendan or Andy, do you have any sentiments on that?
I mean, on the one hand, it's the work's been done, so there's no harm in pushing it out. But if several people have been out there already and confirmed it, also don't want to make extra work. So I guess I'm a little on the fence. I mean, there's no huge harm in just confirming the neighbor's concern and addressing it, but I also don't want to add work if people have thoroughly visited the site and assessed it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm firmly on the fence with Andy.
Okay.
That's I haven't been there.
Beautiful fence. Does anybody want to make a motion to either continue or close?
I make a motion to continue.
I'll second that.
All right, Richard?
It's fine.
Okay, well, we need a date. So we'll continue this to June 6th.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yep, that's fine.
Well, we'll be out of the country June 6th.
Okay, do you want to go to the next meeting then? Will you be back by the 22nd,
Yes, we're back by the 22nd.
which is a Wednesday, by the way?
Okay.
Okay, so we make a motion to continue to June 26th.
22nd.
22nd. I'm sorry.
I'll second that.
Richard
Oh, that's fine.
and Brendan
Yes.
and Jen, yes. So we will return to this party in June.
Yeah. We're not
Okay.
holding anybody up.
What is next?
35 Hatherley.
All right. Okay, 35 Hatherley, this is continued from March 21st. And Murphy? Do we have somebody for this one?
You know, I had a feeling about this because we haven't received anything new. But if you recall, this is March 21st, this was one where there was a lot going on and you were leaning towards a notice of intent finding, but decided to keep it open in the event that the applicant wanted to scale the project back and have the opportunity, because what they were asking for probably wasn't going to be allowed. But so come back with a different plan that was maybe a smaller plan, and that way wouldn't have to refile for the $100 or re-advertise. But have not received or heard from them. So I would say at this point to continue to, well, actually either close and find, or because you don't need the applicant here, but or the other thing is you could give them another shot and continue to a date and time uncertain, which would take them off a future agenda. And actually it would be a legal ad, but it would not, there's no abutter notification for RDAs. So it's just the legal ad that would have to get rerun. That would be option 2, or the third option would be to pick a date in the future that you just go out there and we'll email them and say, we continue to such and such date.
I would go for either closing or continue to a date unknown. So, but happy to take a motion from anybody on that.
I don't see this one on the agenda.
It's the last one.
It
of
was
the-
part of the revised agenda, Andy, that we amended this
red.
afternoon. Yeah,
Got
sorry.
it. Okay.
My problem is closing. Why don't we just issue a positive and make them come in with an NOI?
I agree with you, Penny.
Yeah, that's what
Well, I
I
think that that's what we mean by closing.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well,
you'd
okay,
issue a
so I
finding.
make a motion
Yes.
for a positive.
I just don't know which number positive.
One.
Is that what it is?
Okay.
Well, unless there's someone in the audience you want to talk to, and I don't know why they would be there, I would make a motion for a positive 1.
Second.
All right. Andy?
Hey, Jake. Ah,
Jake, it doesn't have a vote.
Jake's biting my feet.
I thought Penny was yelling at me. Yes.
Brendan
Yes.
and Jen, yes.
Okay. Well,
Okay, good job.
Dear Lord, 8:52.
Well, we're not quite done though. What do we have to do for
Nope.
certificates of compliance?
nothing.
I like them. I
We
read
don't
them.
have to vote on them. I want to hear about the enforcement order for 151st Parish.
Well, so I can just tell you that there's nothing to say other than an enforcement order was sent out requesting.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. That's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, and then I put Dunbar Lane on it just to maybe get clarification about what you guys were really talking about as far as what you wanted to see and how you were leaning, because it seems like there's not sure there's really clear direction, or because I have not been contacted, except Frank was contacted by the owner who says that there is maybe a leaking sewer line in the area, but that's not on the plan. But anyways, I think in fact, we should just table that and go to the request for minor modification, which is 49 Country Way. And that is for just a little different landscaping plan.
Yeah, it's a nicer one.
With a little more thought into it. And I don't see a reason why you can't make a motion to accept the minor modification for the updated landscaping plan.
It's gorgeous.
It's a better plan.
Yeah, it's really quite nice.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, it is.
So can we make a motion to accept his modification?
Do we have dates for accomplishing it?
I think
Those would be consistent with what's in the order.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Was that a motion? Or do we vote on this? Yeah.
We make a
Yes,
motion.
please.
Richard second.
Okay,
Now we vote.
Andy,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
is that your thinking pose? I caught it.
I don't know why. I just want,
You
just
wanted to
yes,
see if I was
yes.
paying
Just really quickly, I'm
attention?
going to say it yes for now on.
No, I want the humor. Jen,
It's too late for that.
it's never too late. Jen, yes, I think this is gorgeous. I wish I could tour it. It's gonna be amazing.
Oh, well, go down. He's a nice guy. Orders of condition, can we do those, Jen?
You can do those all in one fell swoop.
Yep. I make a motion, we accept the orders of condition as written for 25 Mill Wharf Plaza, 210 Central Ave, and opposite 49 Rebecca Road. Somebody want to second it, please?
I'll second that.
Oh, Brendan coming in hot. Andy
Yes.
and Richard.
Yes.
Come sit in the lap.
All right.
Jake's doing good
Oh my
tonight.
God.
Jake's being a pill.
Okay, now a motion to,
Adjourn.
there you have it.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I will
Can I get a
second that.
second? All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Uh,
Good job.
Good job,
Don't we
Jen.
have- Do we go around?
Yeah, go around, Jen.
Yeah,
Make it official.
Richard,
Yep.
Andy,
Yes.
Jen, yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
All
Thanks.
right.
Have a good night.
You too.
Yeah.
Bye.
I'll play now.